So I'm from United to End Genocide, which is an organization that was formed from two organizations that came out of the Save Darfur movement, so the Save Darfur Coalition and Genocide Intervention Network. And we've expanded to look at anywhere in the world where there's a threat of genocide and mass atrocities. Now just recently, I traveled with the president of our organization, former US Congressman Tom Andrews, to Burma, and we came back with a report, and I have extra copies, so afterwards if people are interested. The title of the report, Marching to Genocide in Burma.
Would you like to use the laptop there?
Sure. Okay, so this is the report we came back with, and today has been very very helpful in terms of I think we've covered a lot of ground as far as the history and some of the subtleties of what's going on in Rakhine State, the general background of what's happening, or when you're looking at questions of genocide and mass atrocities and the legal standards. Where we're coming from, or where we were in this report, is where we're looking around the world. We're looking at where these known warning signs, known signs of genocide, and we look at several of those, and we've heard a lot about that today. So I'll just go quickly through just a few of those of what we saw. And these are all pictures just from last month. So I guess you can't see all of it, but just talking about us traveling, we went, spent almost a month all around Burma, including in the camps near Sitwe in Rakhine State, talking to the people in the camps, talking to international NGOs, government officials, civil society leaders, and some of the things that we found. There's clearly this campaign of hate that's going on. I think you all know the numbers at this point, but there's let me see if I can. There you go. There's this clearly all kinds of policies against the Rakhine people, against Muslims in general. We talked about the dehumanization and the propaganda that goes on. This was actually taken. This was near Miktila, which is another place where there's anti-Muslim violence. And you just see these prominent people like the monk Ashim Wirathu, who are referring to Muslims as dogs or African carp who breed quickly and kill their young. And so this is very prevalent. It's going around, and you see a pattern of where Wirathu or others come to different places, and violence follows not very long after. The other part of this is you have the dehumanization, you have this organized pattern. You have the 969 stickers, and more recently the use of Buddhist flags to indicate in a slightly more subtle way of you should shop here at Buddhist shops and not at Muslim shops. So this is this is something that's not only happening in Rakhine but elsewhere against Muslims. But particularly in Rakhine, we see very severe restriction of rights based on identity. You heard a lot about that already, about the restrictions on how many children people can have, on the freedom to move, to get an education, and the list goes on. And then another part of this is that we see tens of thousands of people trying to escape on boats. And last year the UN estimated 30,000. Other estimates are much higher. It's tough to say how many people are going. We know that several of, and we don't know how many or what proportion, end up in the hands of human traffickers on plantations, or who end up drowning. But it's likely at least in the hundreds, if not higher. Then we have the denial of health care. It was, I think Matt spoke earlier about the kicking out of Doctors Without Borders, and then this mob violence against other international NGOs who had to evacuate and haven't been able to come back in and to ramp up again. So this is, this is on a daily basis. This is causing unnecessary deaths. And this is just another photo about the aid getting in is being it's less and less because of these evacuations. So there have been some very brave people in Burma who have spoken out. I believe the special rapporteur spoke about several monks that he met who are protecting Muslims and speaking out against this, but the incentives there are internally very little, and the blowback to people who are trying to speak out against this is very difficult. And that's why it's really important for the international community to be speaking out and to using the leverage that it has. And one final kind of going back to the warning signs of what's going on is one thing that we're seeing, and one thing that you often see is getting rid of witnesses. And in this process, you're not only, over the recent months, it's not only that the healthcare workers and the aid workers are gone, but you're also getting rid of potential witnesses. And that's particularly important because if you look at the trajectory and the potential triggers of violence ahead of the elections next year, the incentives for using hate speech and propaganda are going to go up, and the likelihood that there will be more violence is going up at the same time that the number of potential witnesses is going down. So this is just an example. We're a US-based organization, so a lot of our advocacy is aimed at the US government, but also to other governments. It's the same basic message. We have about 500,000 activists who take actions online or on the telephone to try to create action. And we have some of the, as an activist organization, you want to always end with what can be done, what can we be asking. And here's just a few of those things. I'll just highlight. The first thing is demanding certain things like allowing Doctors Without Borders to return and other NGOs to have access. Establishing a UN High Commission, Office of the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, which, by the way, President Thein met with President Obama and originally gave 11 commitments. Of those, we've been tracking them. There's really only one that's been fully implemented. And one of perhaps the most important one is establishing that office because, as I mentioned, there's a real danger of not having the witnesses there. And then in terms of getting those demands, there is leverage that can be used. We've seen the raising of sanctions, lifting of sanctions in the interest of rewarding other reforms that have happened. But there should still be certain things like the targeted sanctions, the specially designated nationals that can be used. There's a lot of diplomatic, military, symbolic leverage that is available as well, where if you're meeting with high-level officials, particularly military officials, like just last month, right after all of this, these evacuations and being kicked out happened, you had the Secretary of Defense in the U.S. meeting with the Secretary of Defense, hosting the ASEAN Ministers of Defense in Hawaii, including the Burmese Defense Minister. So, and ahead of ASEAN in November, the summit that Burma will be hosting, there's going to be a whole line of higher level U.S. officials visiting, including Secretary Kerry over the summer and President Obama in November. So there's a lot of leverage to be had there. I'll leave it right there for now, but thank you very much. I'm glad to have participated.
Thanks very much.